Today was a rather slow news day. We do have some stories. The Trump administration is canceling student loan forgiveness, and they're going to begin collections. A bunch of really small stories and some independent research. It looks like Elsagate has returned, and YouTube is promoting to hundreds of millions of viewers, probably babies, creepy AI videos, just like we saw almost 10 years ago. Now, we do have a bunch of other smaller stories, but today we actually were going back and forth on this. And I want to stress, I wasn't so sure if we should lead with me and ourselves, but I guess we will, because this actually is a top trending story on X. It's the third largest trending story, or highest trending story in the country, that I sat in the new media seat, Tim Pool, and asked a question about the media lying in what's called the Maryland man hoax. And boy, is the media pissed about it. We knew they would be, and I thought I was being rather professional. So we can break down exactly how this went down and why I was at the White House and the reaction to it. But this does strike at the core of the Abrego Garcia story, in which the media has been lying. And following the question I asked in the briefing room, which was intending to highlight that the media is lying about this story, they are continuing to lie and claim that a man from El Salvador, we got the court documents, is actually from Maryland. Now, from means you originated from this place. It's a lie. So we'll go through that. And, I got a bunch of great interviews today at the White House. It's a very interesting day. We have a lot to talk about. And we will be rolling out interviews in the next couple of days as well. But we can discuss some of what was said. Before we get started, my friends, head over to bunker.life. That's BUNKR.life. The internet is a jungle. And if you fall victim to cybercrime, there's no police to call. You're on your own. Protecting yourself and your loved ones from cyber criminals, scammers, surveillance, governments, corporations, and AI is up to you. If I had to choose one app for privacy, security, and peace of mind, it is Bunker. Built by experts with 25 years of experience catching criminals and fighting cybercrime, Bunker was created to protect their families and friends, and now it's available to you. What do you get? You get a private messenger to share messages, photos, and files with trusted contacts, free from surveillance. A password manager to safeguard your online financial, shopping, streaming, and social media accounts. A personal vault for securing family photos, financial information, IDs, tax documents, insurance information, and more. Bunker is the one app that delivers supercharged privacy and security, letting you store, share, and communicate freely with those you trust. Download Bunker from the App Store, Play Store, or visit bunker.life. That's BUNKR. There's no E. Use code TIM, and you will get your first 3 months free. Super cool. And shout out to Bunker for sponsoring the show. But don't forget to also smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know. This one's going to get interesting, I suppose. We have a couple of individuals here to join us today. Why don't we just start with you, sir? Would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Andrew Roth. I am the president of the State Freedom Caucus Network. The best way to explain it is most of your listeners know who the House Freedom Caucus is in Congress. They're the most conservative lawmakers in D.C., but there are 50 state capitals out there. There are 50 swamps in the 50 state capitals. And I will strenuously argue that they are swampier than D.C. And we can get into that if you want. But we help, the network that I run, we help create state freedom caucuses. So we have a South Carolina Freedom Caucus, a Maryland Freedom Caucus, Illinois, Arizona, Pennsylvania, on and on. We've got 13 of them. The goal is to get into all 50. California, Vermont, going to take some time, but we'll get there eventually. And the way to get back this country is from the states.
Right on. And sir, who are you?
I'm Jordan Pace. I'm the chairman of the South Carolina Freedom Caucus. I'm a state representative right outside of Charleston, South Carolina, and been a long-time listener to the show. Excited to be here and tell you all about what we're doing.
Right on.
In the South.
Should be fun. We got Raymond hanging out.
Hey guys, it's Raymond. I work here at Timcast, and I look forward to talking to you gentlemen about the Freedom Caucus and what you got going on, as well as Tim blowing up the news today. That's going to be exciting. Phil.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary. Let's get into it.
Here's the story. I want to say this first. The reason why we put up normally we have the waiting room up 20 minutes early. It's because we were originally going to go with the student debt forgiveness from Trump. But the crew here, I think, agreed. I had asked them. This actually was a top trending story. I hate to make myself the news, but that's what happened. Mediaite reports beanie-clad Tim Pool tees up Carolyn Leavitt to bash media in softball appearance at White House briefing. I love it. I'll just read what my question was. I said, many of the news organizations that are represented in this room have marched in lockstep on false narratives, such as the Very Fine People hoax, the Covington smear, and now it's being called the Maryland Man hoax, where an MS-13 gang member, adjudicated by 2 different judges, I believe, is just simply being referred to as a Maryland man over and over. Now, in an effort from the White House to expand access to new companies, you've created this new media seat. So I'm wondering if you can comment on this, on following this expansion. You've had numerous outlets disparage the companies that you've had sit here, as well as the reporters. I'm wondering if you would comment on that unprofessional behavior, as well as elaborate if there's any plans to expand access to new companies. And Karen Levitt certainly did then point out the Maryland man story. This is wrong from the get-go. We have known that this man, Abrego Garcia, is not a quote-unquote Maryland man. He is from El Salvador. I'm not going to waste your time. I'm going to show you the document literally right here. This is the actual court document from 2019, which states, number 1, he is not a citizen or national of the U.S. 2, he's a native of El Salvador. 3, he entered at an unknown place and an unknown date. And 4, was not admitted or paroled by an immigration officer. At a master calendar hearing, the respondent, through counsel, admitted the factual allegations contained in the NTA and conceded removability as charged. I want to stress, admitted the factual allegations. This is not a Maryland man. These are lies that they are perpetuating. So I was invited to come down to the White House, and I was asked if there was anyone we'd like to interview. We did an interview with Secretary Kristi Noem, with, I believe the appropriate title is DAP, Deputy Assistant to the President. I could be getting that wrong. Sebastian Gorka, as well as Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy. And we'll be rolling out those interviews as there's a story to how we film it. The computers are not simple like we do, where we have this like straight. You record it live and you go. They had to send us a link. So now we have the files and we're going to start putting them up tomorrow. But I was asked at the last minute if I would like to take the new media seat, to which I said yes. And my question is not a softball. Just because, let me explain this problem, okay? To all the people right now, I'm trending. They're all talking about it. Some are happy, some are mad. The corporate press lies, okay? I just showed you this man admitted to being from El Salvador. This is not in question. He admitted to being removable. He admitted to entering unlawfully. He did get a withholding of deportation. That's not being disputed. Why is the media using the phrase Maryland man to refer to a guy from El Salvador who is only here illegally? They are doing it because they are factual but not truthful. It is a fact the man, for now, is illegally residing in Maryland. But that does not make him a Maryland dad. It makes him an illegal immigrant arrested in Maryland. And if that's the narrative they went with, an illegal immigrant arrested in Maryland, Abrego Garcia, I wouldn't be having this conversation with all of you right now. The point that I was bringing up to this secretary, to the press secretary, was that the media in this room is largely composed of an uncurious group of people who do not investigate, and they use each other as sources and say the same narrative. Not a single one of them is concerned about the fact that they didn't actually pull up the court documents and that they're falsely representing that this man is, quote, from Maryland. And it is so egregious, in fact, that Hassan Piker, one of the biggest streamers on the left, did not know. I'm not kidding. I'll play the video for you. He was absolutely unaware that Abrego Garcia was an illegal immigrant from El Salvador. And if you wonder why liberals are shocked by this story, this is why. People like Hassan Piker don't read the news. He gets talking points from the corporate press who keep saying a Maryland man, Maryland man. Hassan then genuinely believes this guy is just some American guy born and bred in Maryland who was deported. Now, if I thought this guy was born and bred in America and deported to Sicat in El Salvador, I'd be calling for his release too. But see, we here at Timcast actually do research. And so my question was, these news outlets are ragging on us, and we are but one seat in this room. When they said, Tim, would you like to take the new media seat? I said, sure. I had spoken with Elad. Elad said, I really think you should ask about these Chinese nationals that Riley Moore wants to remove from this country, ship their student visas. Rep. Riley Moore's introduced this bill. And I said, that's actually a really good question. However, I have another question. They've created this new media space. We're just companies. That's it. Okay? The Daily Wire is a company. A Breitbart is a company. War Room is a company. We have large viewerships. We reach a lot of people. We have questions we want to ask. Now, what offends me is that these journalists in the room, they march in lockstep on lies, I could go through a big list for all of you, but I named only 3 for time. The Very Fine People hoax, the Covington smear, and the Maryland Man hoax. But how about the lab leak hoax? How about the drinking bleach hoax? How many times are they going to all in unison lie about what's going on? So my frustration is when they bring in but one chair for someone like me to sit in. The New York Times, Politico, numerous journalists from various outlets all begin disparaging us, as if what really matters to those people is that their sick club of lying sycophants pretend like they're speaking truth to power. In which case, when I say these large, massive multimedia corporations are lying to the American people, it's a softball, which implies I'm supposed to be grilling Carolyn Levitt for some reason. No, I'm seeking a comment from the press secretary on the fact that they have allowed all of this media in the room who just lie all day, every day. And there's one chair in this room for new media who's doing something different, which is why I ended by asking if there was a plan or effort to expand access. Now, she didn't answer it. I don't fault her for that. She did give her answer saying the media is pushing this Maryland man hoax. That was the gist of that story. And of course, now the media and the press are losing their mind. And that's me speaking about, I don't know if you guys, I guess, because, I've essentially put myself in the news, have questions about what happened, or what do you think, or,
I have one big question.
Yeah.
And it's the top of my mind is, after you said that, after the press conference was over, did you have any reporters come up to you and say, you're right, but I got a job to do? Or were they giving you side eyes and nasty looks?
So I'm sitting down and there I can't really see much of the room. They brought me in through the same, it's crazy. The doors are these big, thick, like steel, and they slide open. And I came through the same door as the press secretary, as Carolyn Levitt. So when I walked in, the room was full. I sat in a chair. And when I walked out to the same room. So obviously their view is going to be, the wife invites me in. I come in with them. I ask them this question that makes the press look bad, and then we all walk out. No one told me what to say. There was zero direction. And I actually warned them I was seeking to disparage the press because I'm offended by their lies. And they just chuckled and said, hey, look, just ask whatever you want, I suppose. And I actually said, I'm considering asking just a very straightforward question, opening this professionally, with this bill that Rep. Riley Moore has to strip the visas from Chinese nationals. And they were like, we're not going to tell you what to do. Just whatever matters. And so I figured Elad's got this. He's got the straightforward, serious questions. I actually wanted to say a lot more, but I figured I'd stick to decorum. Because what I was going to say is, to all the people in the room, I will never sit in this chair again if they just open up the seats in this room to other media companies that are at least trying to find the truth. All of these journalists in there, all their outlets report the exact same things. Now, they have brought in, I think, around 20% have been from new media outlets, but they're all standing up. Why is Mary Margaret from the Daily Wire standing off to the side when they're arguably getting more viewership on these issues than many of the people sitting in those chairs?
Mm-hmm. I keep thinking about the Michael Malice quote. No matter how much you hate the corporate media, you don't hate them enough.
He's got so many good ones.
There's so many.
Because there's also factual but not truthful.
Correct.
And that's exactly what they do.
Yep.
And that's what they're doing now. Yeah, so it was pretty wild. The corridors you go through and the security you go through is obviously insane. The rooms are very small, and I got to tell you, it's my first time actually having open access in the White House, and it's a weird place. There's a bowling alley.
Oh,
a Truman bowling alley.
I played there.
Have you really?
Yeah, I actually broke it.
So
how'd you break it?
There was a group of us, like 6 of us, and we threw a couple sets or frames, and then something happened, and they had to shut it down.
So tell me what it's like when you're, because this is what I was experiencing, but I'd rather have you say it. What is it like walking to that bowling alley?
Well, it's underneath the old executive office building right next door. The White House is not just the building, the White House. It's the 8 acres that includes the old executive office building and then the South Lawn and everything. And so to get there, you go down into the basement, and it's underneath the old executive office building.
Describe the basement.
It's I can't even remember. It just felt like a cave. Like
Yeah.
if you go into the tunnels underneath the the Capitol office buildings. It's the same sort of thing.
There's-
It's where you want to go when a nuclear strike happens or something.
I'm 5'10". If you're 5'11", you're not going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
There's pipes that are at my head. The ground is like a floating grate. And it was like this way to the vending machines. And I felt like I was not supposed to be down there because it's a weird industrial factory looking tunnel. And then there's this like step and this door that looks like a closet. And it says there's a little gold placard bowling alley. And I was like, what the? It was locked. I couldn't get in.
I thought you were going to say it was powered by Volt Tech.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I didn't have any. The funny thing is, the only press that came up to me were actually fans. I mean, there's a decent amount of people that are in there that are right-leaning or equally as concerned with the lies the media keeps pushing on these narratives. And I got up and walked right out. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. So they were like, have a seat here. And then I'm like, when they were leaving and they opened the side door again, I'm like, I guess I just go back the way I came. Like walk out with them and everything. But it was cool.
I mean, they'll let you know really quickly if you go the wrong way, I imagine.
Well, I'm actually pretty sure that if I didn't follow them, they would have just closed the door.
That makes sense as well.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the whole shtick here, not stick, apologies, but IRL's calling out the media and calling out their lies for the last bunch of years. So I'm glad you went on the main stage in the freaking White House in front of all those scumbags, media folks, and called them out in front of their faces.
Yeah, I mean, look, the legacy media has been extremely critical of not just alternative media and podcasters, but of Tim personally.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with going into the White House briefing room and rubbing their nose in it. I mean, honestly, what's wrong with it? Like, they've written hit piece after hit piece after hit piece about Tim personally, Timcast, and the podcasting space and alternative media. They have lost badly, and there's nothing wrong with going in there and reminding them, you are not in control of this. This is not your room. This is a room paid for by the American people. And so having access, people like Tim or whether it be the Daily Wire or whoever, having access for them is just as legitimate as ABC or NBC or MSNBC.
It's more legitimate.
Not just legitimate, but like necessary.
Yeah.
They again, like the Daily Wire is getting substantially more traffic than many of the news outlets that are given seats, and still very much this cabal, the White House, what is it, the White House Press the Press Corps, the Correspondents Association or whatever, still has a lot of control in the space. And I'll tell you what was really freaky, just as an aside, is I'm planning on asking this question, and I had a variety of ways to frame it. And the moment the briefing starts, Carolyn Levitt says, I'd like to give it a round of applause to this photographer who's been here for 44 years. And the whole room is clapping with smiles on their faces for this journalist. And I was like, oh no. I was like, it's this woman's retirement. She's been here for 44 years. I do respect that because it's the newer class of these woke millennial types that I'm much more provoked by, I would argue. And then I'm like, well, time to rag on the media now after everyone just cheered for this woman. And that actually got me pretty nervous. At first, I was very arrogant. Like, I sat down like, I am going to destroy it. And then they all started clapping and cheering this woman. I was like, now I feel bad. And I was like, oh, no. Let me play this clip. This is important. This is Hassan Piker.
Oh, this guy.
For those that are not familiar, this guy is one of the most prominent leftist streamers. And he was shocked to see me in this chair. But what this clip reveals is that he literally did not know that Abrego Garcia, the MS-13 gang member, illegal immigrant, was from El Salvador. Listen to this. Let me start from the beginning. Hoax, the Covington smear, and now what's being called the Maryland man hoax, where an MS-13 gang member adjudicated by two different judges, I believe, is just simply being referred to as a Maryland man over and over again.
Is he not a Maryland man? What? I'll have you believe, sir, he's actually not from Maryland. He's from D.C.
He's not from Maryland. He's from El Salvador. And he thought the point I was making was nitpicking whether it was D.C. or Maryland, as opposed to pointing out this guy illegally entered the country, as the court has already determined.
Is that what Beanie Boy's saying? He is not a man. He's not a man from Maryland. Yeah, Maryland is fake. Russia Today correspondent Tim Pool. Yep. Yeah, I love the centrist liberal Tim Pool. Hey guys, centrist liberalism. Wait, is he wearing a hoodie under his like suit jacket? Oh, no. Gross.
It's literally just a single hoodie. Look at this. It's a true classic hoodie. They're not very expensive.
Brother, suit jacket, hoodie, beanie combo is so gross, dude.
I thought this was a really good opportunity to break down a lot of the problems in the corporate press and alternative media. Hassan doesn't even know what I'm wearing, and he's speaking to millions of people. But the important thing is, I show you this once again, and I can't believe okay, guys, I gotta tell you. First, there was a horse. The horse died, and we started beating the dead horse. Okay, this story is a dead horse being beaten over and over again. We pulverized it into glue yesterday and cat food. Now it is just probably ash and charcoal and maybe the teeth remaining, because if we keep, I don't know how many times I can point this out. He is not a citizen or national of the U.S. He is a native of El Salvador. This is can you pull this up? This is the court document showing dude is from El Salvador. But the reason I stress this again, the first thing I'll say is, it's for those that are watching the live show, you're like, Tim, you just told us this. Yes, but this will be a segment specifically addressing Hassan. When people like Hassan pull up these news stories and they march and lock, they genuinely believe, like, CNN's telling me the truth. He goes, he's not from Maryland. What's he, from D.C.? It's like, no, my dude, he's from El Salvador. But people like Hassan don't do any journalistic work. They don't research. They don't pull up court documents. So he actually thinks, and I feel bad for him because I understand his anger. Hassan believes that Donald Trump accidentally arrested an American citizen from Maryland and deported him to El Salvador. I mean, that would terrify me too. We've said on the show numerous times, American citizens should not be going to El Salvador. But this is what the corporate press does.
The fascinating thing I believe about all this is that it reminds me of the defund the police thing, which is a portion of the left gets fixated on something and it takes over the entire left side of the aisle to the point where they look absolutely berserk and crazy. And when you've got a senator and 4 congressmen going down to El Salvador to a prison to meet and shake hands and have margaritas with an MS-13 gang member, you're not even crazy anymore. You're like certifiably insane.
A little.
And so, like, if you want to pulverize the horse, kill it, turn it into glue, cat food, turn it into ash, I say we just keep doing it until they stop talking about it.
Yeah.
Because it's our issue. We've won it, and we're going to win tomorrow and the next day and the next day.
A little context about this guy. He specifically said that there are baby settlers. He takes the side of Hamas. Yeah. He specifically said that there are baby settlers, and that how he doesn't judge how people rise up. He's literally had Houthi terrorists on his stream. He said that he said he's speaking to a translator who's translating to the Houthi terrorist. Tell him that we believe that he's doing what Luffy would do. Luffy's a character from One Piece, which is a manga. And so he literally takes the side of terrorists. He straight up has said that America deserved 9/11. Came out and said it. So he.
You better be careful. Trump might deport him.
Yeah, I would love it. He's an anchor baby. He's an anchor baby. But like he actually kind of is emblematic of the left in that they can't help but take the side of the bad guys. The left was on the side of the people that were firebombing cities across the country in 2020. The former vice president, Kamala Harris, was actually advertising a website to help pay for the legal fund for people that were arrested, not for protesting, but for actually rioting. Kamala Harris took a picture with, I forget the guy's name. He was the guy that was killed by shot by the police because he was about to take off with a car full of kids. He had a knife. Jacob Blake. And he's the reason that Kenosha burned down. Yep. The vice president went and took pictures with him. The left continually sides with people that are not just on the left, but they literally side with criminals and the bad guys.
It's not a bug either.
Yes.
It's a feature. I mean, that's a
100%.
feature of the system.
I agree, but I also think there's a point to be made in that, you know, some of these guys just aren't smart enough to do the digging. And, you know, obviously there's a lot of people who would rather just insult and rag on Hassan and you take the low road. Serge is raising his hand. But I'm going to say this with sincerity. I think the dude genuinely just believes too much fake stuff and doesn't know what's real. And so, like, I'll say it again. I mean, when the news initially broke about the administrative error, my position was, okay, they deported an illegal immigrant. This is an administrative error. They shouldn't have done this. And I get a bunch of people now taking that quote and sending it to me and saying, what's up, Tim? Where are you at now? I'm like, oh, well, they came out with the arrest documents showing it was MS-13. They cited the Alien Enemies Act saying that he is part of a terrorist organization. Here's the evidence. Here's the image of his tattoos. Here's the informant giving his rank. Here's the arrest report showing him with known gang members. Here's his wife trying to cover up his tattoos. And he's a wife beater. And I'm like, I see. So what's the remedy then for the administrative error is a USCIS interview. That's it. Now, I did do an interview. I had an interview with Secretary Noem, and we actually spoke for about half an hour. But at least in this regard, she said, at this point, it's out of our jurisdiction. He is not an American citizen. There's no remedy for this. He can have a USCIS interview if he finds his way back here somehow, but it's not going to happen. There's no reality where that happens. If he does come back, he will simply get his hearing and be deported immediately. So they're arguing for this administrative tool. We're at the point now where Senator Van Hollen has backed away saying, I don't care if he's deported. If he came back, they'd say, okay, wait, before you enter the country, USCIS agent, how are things in El Salvador? They've arrested all of the gang members. Okay, bye. Back in the plane. Go home.
For Mr. Andy, your question of beating I have a question for you.
Yeah.
The problem with the right, a lot of times, is we always follow the narratives of the left. We let them tell us the stories, and we've been beating this dead horse for weeks now. Why can't we just stop and start talking about what we want to talk about and have them follow us instead of us follow them?
I think the chief reason is because the deck is stacked against us because the corporate media is so large and funded so predominantly by corporate interests that it's tough to suffocate that noise and talk about what we want to. I mean, gosh, Caroline Levitt would be happy to talk about what we want to talk about every day, but she can't. But when there's only one guy in the room who's...
Doesn't Donald Trump just tweet and set the narrative? I feel like what you're saying is actually contrary to the reality.
It's a tug of war. I would agree with you because we have talked about it before that I've said in the past, we need to start telling them what the story is. And we've been increasingly doing it. I think this election, the podcast presidency, was the inflection point where this is a tug of war. So Signalgate versus Maryland man hoax is a good example of this. Well, actually, they probably ran face first into that on accident. But see how they're trying to shift back to Pete Hegseth? It's an old story. Signalgate was a month ago. Yeah. Like, we're over this. This news cycle has moved on. But they initially tried to make us care about a circumstance not worth caring about. Did you know that a journalist was accidentally given access to partial information related to strikes in Yemen? No times, no targets, no locations, no known weapons, vehicles, yes. And I'm sorry, I should say partial times, but without location. And by all means, you can criticize it. But journalists get access to this information all the time. So, like, what's the story? They desperately tried to make us care about that. And we just walked away from it for the most part. We did talk about it for sure. Yeah. But so I would say this. If you track the news cycle and look at the corporate press, they talked about it for about a week and a half longer than we did. It was nuts how many panels they were doing on it. It was kind of funny.
Well, yeah, this has been, like I said, it's a feature, not a bug. If you go all the way back to the French Revolution, you got Marat and the guys running the papers. Once they realized, hey, we can turn on this outrage machine and rile up the sans-culotte to go, storm the Bastille or whatever, they've never turned it off. And that's the lesson the left has learned that we're just starting to figure out, I think, on the right, where we can set the narrative if we have Trump and the White House tweeting about it, if we've got a few pointed media companies that are thoughtful about it. And this was the inflection point in this election where I think we're starting to get the hang of it.
I think that's right.
I do want to just add as a quick aside before we move on, is Harry Sisson tried coming after me. He said, Tim Pool cried about President Zelensky not wearing a suit when he met with Trump. But this is how Tim showed up to the White House today. Zip-up jacket and a beanie. Maybe he shouldn't be such a hypocrite.
Did you meet Trump?
When I met Trump, I wore a suit.
Yeah.
And I went to a a very nice clothing store in West Palm Beach, and they actually instructed me that the beanie was correct for the suit that I was wearing. And I laughed and I said, let's go. They explained to me that they actually do sell hats. And I said, but this is not formal, right? Would this be considered rude? And they're like, no, it's perfectly fine. And I was like, really? And they were like, yes, of course. And they had similar hats, but I was like, all right, I'm going to wear it.
Most of the talking points that you're hearing from the left, especially people like Hassan and like Harry Sisson, it's just a vehicle for the ad hominem. Right? It's not about, there's no substantive criticism. It's just a vector of attack so that way they can insult Tim personally because they have no substance. They can't say, oh, you're wrong about the media. You're wrong about your question. The premise of your question was wrong. They can't do that. So they just have to say, well, look at how dumb his hat is. Look at how dumb his clothes are, blah, 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 blah. It's literally got no substance.
That was my response. Who wants to read it?
To be fair, it's a cool hoodie.
What I actually responded saying, I wasn't meeting with the president. When I met with the president, I did wear a suit. And this is, I was asked before, it's like, hey, you're going, should I get a suit jacket or something? I'm like, for the press briefing? I was like, I'm not dressing up for these people. And some were saying, yeah, but what about Carolyn Levitt, disrespecting her? And I'm like, yeah, calm down. It's fake nonsense. If you're coming, when Zelensky went to the World Economic Forum, he wore a suit. That was before the war. But regardless, now he shows up to Trump and he's dressed down. And Trump didn't really care that much, but he did get criticized for that. But let's jump to this next story. We have this tweet from Gunther Eagleman. He says, watching David Hogg almost single-handedly fracture his party into two pieces is phenomenal. He said that one of his main objectives is to unseat Democrats, but then refuses to name anyone, says he's willing to put up to $200 million to get it done. James Carville and other Democrats are now calling for his removal as DNC vice chair. Pure cinema right here. They're imploding more than they already were. I don't want to give this guy too much airtime. I will play a little bit of this, but we have another clip of David Hogg getting absolutely annihilated because he has no idea what he's talking about, and he's destroying the Democratic Party.
Specifics at this. So right now, let me be clear. This is not specifically when it comes to the candidates that we are targeting. It's not just, if you're over a certain age, you should not be doing this. Unfortunately, there are people of all ages who are failing to meet this moment in different ways right now. What we're looking at it's not out with the old and in with the new. It is out with the ineffective and in with the effective. And part of what we're doing with this announcement is waiting to see who retires here and says, you know what, it is time. I'm not ready to meet this moment anymore. And I know for a lot of our members that they will decide that ultimately.
So the reason I want to highlight that is what he's basically saying is he wants old Democrats to self-deport. He's basically saying, we're going to launch a massive campaign against you. Why don't you retire? I got to be honest, that's actually the right thing to do. What Donald Trump is doing, and this is something that Secretary Noem told me, is that getting the message out to illegal immigrants, leave now of your own volition. Otherwise, you will face penalties. It's going to increase self-deportation. People are just going to leave, and that saves you money. If David Hogg can convince incumbent Democrats to quit out of fear, retire now before it's too late, he's going to save himself a fat sack of cash. But now we have this, where on ABC News, David Hogg, and he's like one of four, like three vice chairs of the DNC. Is that his position?
Yeah.
He gets absolutely obliterated in this clip. Check this out. Let me tee this up. This is the future of the Democratic Party. This is important.
They've got no message. They've got no movement. They've got no leader. I mean, it doesn't get any worse than that. I mean, you're defending Harvard. You're traveling to El Salvador for MS-13 gang members. But here's the point. You're taking $20 million. If I'm looking at someone, my vice chair of the RNC, taking $20 million for another effort, it's $20 million out of the DNC's pocket. You can't be on the board of the Fishing and Forest Company and on Greenpeace at the same time. There are places for groups to hold the party accountable. I think it's right.
Yeah, let me push back against that. This was not an MS-13 gang member, and you damn well know that.
Oh my God.
He was not.
Okay,
and
so keep defending this.
Please don't stop David Hogg. Please don't stop.
The administration admitted this was wrong. In America, we have due process, and we are a land of law and order. We are a land of law and order. And this administration is repeatedly showing time and time again they do not care about what the Supreme Court says. They do not care about the rule of law. And you cannot defend sending people to another country.
Just did a poll that
to another country where they don't have rights.
Think that
where he's being denied counsel, due process, and so much more.
I'm going to pause real quick because David Hogg's yelling over this dude. He said CNN released a poll that most Americans believe all illegal immigrants should be deported. Yeah. This is the issue with David Hogg as vice chair and why I would say He is burning down the DNC. I have this. This is the Prince George's County Police Department gang field interview sheet. This is released by the DOJ. This is the arrest report showing that Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia was arrested with MS-13. Okay, I just think it's fairly obvious that if you're wearing MS-13 gang clothes, that in and of itself doesn't really say much. You're wearing a Bulls hat and a jersey. However, if you're wearing their specific gang clothes and you are with them, now we're going to start asking questions. Because if you were not part of MS-13, you might get in trouble with these guys. I genuinely wonder if people don't understand gang culture, but if you're in gang territory wearing the wrong colors, they will come up to you. They will. This is very, very common for people who from Chicago. I know I'm beating a dead horse on that one because I'm from there. You'll be walking down the street, and if you're wearing black and gold, someone's going to stop and say, are you Latin King? Like, you're wearing the gang colors. And it's like, bro, I'm just wearing gym shorts. You don't even know. And this is common. So not only do we have evidence that when officers then interviewed Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia during the interview, officers observed he was wearing a Bulls hat and a hoodie with rolls of money covering the eyes and ears and mouth, which is indicative of ver or, I don't know how to pronounce that, or y calar, see no evil, hear no evil, say no evil. Wearing the Chicago Bulls hat represents they're a member in good standing with MS-13. And then they interviewed an individual who said that he was a Chicao, right here. He had the rank of Chicao with the moniker of Chele. And then, of course, here is the document I've shown 50 billion times already that asserts in a court, in the hearing for removal, that he is a citizen of El Salvador. So for David Hogg to then go on the show and say, you know damn well he was not. I feel like these people can't save their own party for the life of them.
Well, I'll make a prediction. I bet you're not going to see David Hogg on TV in the next couple of months. As soon as that was over, I bet, there's clearly a void at the top in the Democrat Party. But whether it's Gavin Newsom, who's trying so hard to not be a progressive anymore, even though he is, Rahm Emanuel, who's going online or going on TV saying stop all the woke stuff. Whether it's Obama, somebody's calling up David Hogg and saying you're not going to go on TV anymore. Ooh. That's the question, right? I don't agree. We were talking about this yesterday when we're crafting the thumbnails for this show. We want to have there's party leadership for prominent political stories. If the story is about, sometimes we won't use a political. If the story is really big, like it's Elon Musk. If Elon does a big thing and it's big in the news, the character in the thumbnail will be Elon. There's no Democrat personality that represents the party at all. If I'm wrong, it's because you're right that there is nobody at the top. But what I can tell you is that there's a lot of money that there's a lot of checks that will not be written to the DNC.
Indeed,
if that behavior continues.
And I think you are correct. So I do believe there's a strong probability that you are correct in the entirety. I think, however, you have split factions in the DNC right now, and Hogg,
civil war, baby.
Internal party civil war. Right. With the Democrats, there's going to be the James Carville types. He called them a little twerp.
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
And you think David Hogg's not going to listen to what he has to say? Nope. No. And perhaps he was only called a twerp because he wouldn't listen in the first place. Yep. So there's going to be someone with a check for the Democratic Party, and Hogg's going to say, you're not giving that check to me, and you never were gonna. So I don't care what you think. I'm going to say what I think. This fracturing is going to... I don't see how, at least in the near future, they emerge with a coherent party.
Right now the Democrats don't know what they want to be. They don't know if they want to be progressives or if they want to be closer to mainstream Ro Khanna style Democrats. And also, if they decide to go with the progressives, the very progressives, which David Hogg is one of, they're not going to get any money. They're not going to get donations. They'll get small donations from the average person that likes, AOC, likes Bernie Sanders, and they might be able to get, millions of dollars, but they're not going to get the big checks that go to PACs, which actually make a big difference. Hillary Clinton spent $1 billion to lose to Donald Trump. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris spent $1 billion to lose to Donald Trump. Joe Biden spent $1 billion when he beat Donald Trump. That's the kind of money that it takes to win an election nowadays. And they're just not, and AOC and Bernie Sanders aren't going to get it because they will actually talk about things like taking away, you're changing the corporate or the tax rate on capital gains. So your people that pay 15%, they're going to pay 25%. They're not going to want to give a donation to them. If they're going to tax unrealized gains, you're going to have to sell your property, pay taxes. These are the types of policies that AOC and Bernie like, and they're not going to get anyone to give them money.
But you guys you're involved in this political landscape of fundraising and all that stuff.
Yeah,
very much. So I'm curious with your experience in this. It's interesting because I don't see a reality in which the old guard Democrats begin to agree with the woke new upstarts. So what happens to those? Where do those donations go? Do they just stop? How does this play out?
Go ahead.
Well, the history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes, right? So if you look back through, we've gone through cycles of this in the past on the left and the right, but it's historically either somebody on the right, younger side, or somebody on the younger side on the left in that Rohana style picks up the mantle and runs with the money. Or more, what's happened on the left more often is one of the older types sees an opportunity, adjust their politics, and try to take their money that they've, their historic donors, and bring it with them, and try to marry in the middle. And that's kind of what Bernie Sanders shot for, but missed. And if Hillary Clinton probably would have knocked him off the edge, he might have been successful with that. But that would be my suspicion where that would.
I think political donors kind of fall in two camps. One, and this works on both sides of the aisle. There are the principal donors, and then there are the transactional donors. And if the money is not moving where it needs to go in budgets, in federal budgets or state budgets, the transactional donors will stop. And if you're talking about MS-13 illegal aliens, or you're talking about transgender surgeries and stuff like that, and that prevents the money from moving in the budgets, the transactional money stops. I know that's a little complicated, but that's how I see the donor community.
So are we optimistic then for the midterms, for the next 4 years?
Good.
I'm thoroughly black-pilled on just the economic situation in our country. I mean, we are going into a sovereign debt crisis.
Yep.
And Trump is correctly trying to steer that Titanic boat and turn it diametrically in the opposite direction. But he's getting hammered by the reality of having 120% debt to GDP.
Yep.
And I do not know how we stop that train.
The biggest problem that the Republicans are going to face is the economy, and the Republicans need to actually provide good results for the American people, because if they don't, the people that are going to come after them, the Democrats that will end up getting elected because the Americans don't like the Republicans because they didn't do enough for them, didn't provide the results they wanted. The people that come after the Republicans are very, very bad. They're your AOCs, they're your Bernies, and those people will destroy the economy. They will because we have, like you said, 120% debt to GDP. And if you start implementing things like the Green New Deal and implementing things like Medicare for all with that kind of debt, you will blow up the dollar, and that has ramifications that aren't just to the United States. There are ramifications globally. Those are the kind of things that start wars.
Well, but I would even go further and say we just need to stop the current spending. And the people that are in the way, that are literally blocking us from doing that, are Senate Republicans.
Yeah, fair enough.
So the inflation rate in 1980 was 13%, and the Federal Reserve hiked interest rates to nearly 20%, and the economy officially entered into a recession. The U.S. federal debt to GDP in 1980 was 34.56. Mm-hmm. The current U.S. debt to GDP is 122.7. Mm-hmm. So we are not producing anything. We're not going to be able to pay down the debt. Probably why the Doge effort is so important, but I don't believe that Doge is moving quickly enough to get our spending down. So you have the debt continuing to increase. In fact, the deficit is still increasing. So the deficit is how much more we're spending than we make, and the deficit is going up, meaning we're going to exponentially accrue debt faster and faster and faster. Yeah. And, Ian likes to just say on this show, just default.
That's a war.
Just default.
That'll be a war.
It's World War III instantly overnight.
Well, I would argue that inflation is default. like when you
Fair.
when you buy $1,000 bond, you expect $1,000 back, but because of inflation, you get less of it. And so the crisis that we're having right now is that if the Fed cuts rates, that means more money's in the system, which means higher inflation. If they raise rates, that means interest expense that the government has to pay causes inflation. There is no way out of this without inflation.
But there's a way out of it. We have to cut spending.
Right.
I mean, that's the only way out.
But
to cut spending.
But if you're as black-pilled as I am, there is no amount of spending that you can cut to get out of it.
And even if they cut spending on the things that actually do impact the deficit and the debt, unfunded liabilities, your mandatory spending, which is your Medicare, Medicaid, those are the people that vote the most, and that will not last. Because they're of the opinion that they paid in. So even if you cut all the benefits to everybody 65 and over and said, we have to save the dollar, we have to save the country, they will vote your ass out the very next chance they get. So it's really a situation where I'm very much in the same boat with you. I don't know how to fix it.
I think Trump might have a solution. We've got this story from the Post Millennial. Trump admin reverses course on Biden's student debt relief. Only 38% of borrowers are current on payments. They have not collected on student loan debt for 5 years. We've got a statement from the DOE. This is amazing. It says, quote, American taxpayers will no longer be forced to serve as collateral for irresponsible student loan policies, said U.S. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon. The Biden administration misled borrowers. The executive branch does not have the constitutional authority to wipe debt away, nor do the loan balances simply disappear. That's the interesting one. Because I've heard from people, they logged into their accounts and the balance simply disappeared. So what happens now? Will it come back? Hundreds of billions have already been transferred to taxpayers going forward. The DOE, in conjunction with the Department of Treasury, will shepherd the student loan program responsibly and according to the law, which means helping borrowers return to repayment, both for the sake of their own financial health and our nation's economic outlook. They mentioned 42.7 million borrowers owe more than 1.6 trillion in student debt. This is only 38% of borrowers are in repayment and current on their student loans. They say almost 1.9 million borrowers have been unable to even begin repayment because of a processing pause that was put in place by the previous administration. Since August 2024, the department has not processed applications for enrollment in any repayment plan, such as income-based repayment, income contingent repayment, or PAYE, P-A-Y-E. The department is currently working with federal student loan servicers and anticipates processing to begin next month. This is going to be interesting. I'm curious what you guys think. I'll tell you what I think. And then young people, younger millennials, or just millennials in general, with massive debt, who haven't had to pay them for 5 years, they didn't budget for this. They're going to get a shock debt overnight that they thought is gone. Mm-hmm. And if they do say, when they say this debt doesn't disappear, if people log back in and all of a sudden the debt is there, or they get a collections bill in the mail saying, sorry, the Supreme Court said Biden could not do this, it is going to be people waking up with negative money. They didn't budget for this. The economy is going to get hurt.
Yeah, I work in, when I'm not in State House, I work in real estate. So primarily commercial real estate, but I do a little bit of residential. And I can tell you, people our age, when they're waiting longer and longer to buy a house. In the last 5 years, we've seen a little bit of an uptick of millennials buying their first home because they weren't paying student loans, and they were suspended, so the lenders could count on that. But
wow,
this is going to.
Do you guys have any sense as to if, and this is totally hypothetical and it's just popped in my head, I have no idea if there's any substance to it, but is it possible that banks have taken these loans and turned them into securities and have sold them like they did with the mortgage-backed securities in 2008? I don't know, but if they did, in the hopes that the government was going to pay these things off, because if they said, oh, Biden says that he's going to pay them off, and they say, well, we can securitize these.
In my experience, if anything can be securitized and financialized, they will. I don't know if they can legally do that, but if they can, then they're going to try it.
Yeah, I mean, again, I have no sense as to if they did or not, but if they did, if banks have done this, and then this is a ticking time bomb.
Well, most of those same banks we're talking about, the big five, they're already sitting on an insurmountable amount of commercial property debt. Mm-hmm. They're just kicking the can down the road as long as possible. If that's the case, then that might be the straw that breaks the
the telephone pole.
or the telephone pole, or more than a straw.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Again, I don't know, but I just thought of that. I was like, well, what if they securitized them? What if they're like, oh, well, the government will take care of them? Joe Biden said, and so they're just like, hey.
Well, I know private banks used to write student loans, and then Obama nationalized it and made it a strictly government enterprise. And then there's Sallie Mae, which may securitize the loans. I'm not sure, but they're kind of like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. But all of this, when I read headlines like this, that Trump's going to reverse this, I think of two things. One is he's not going to lose any votes. Not that he's running for re-election, but the Republican Party's not going to lose any votes on this because these are art history majors that are woke and liberal and protesting on campus. And two is, hey, here's a great idea. Let's learn about personal responsibility again.
Okay, so Brave AI says, yes, banks have securitized student loans. The process involves bundling individual student loans into securities that can be sold to investors. This allows banks to provide liquidity by offering more loans and diversifying their portfolios for investors. The securitization process typically includes originating the loans, bundling them into a pool, transferring the pool to a trust, rating the securities, and selling. That's the exact same thing they did with mortgage-backed securities. That's what mortgage-backed securities were. They were backed by mortgages. Now these securities are just backed by student loans. The reason they felt safe to do that is because the government has said they'll guarantee them. So if kids you're not allowed to default on these, if I understand correctly. Right, so that's probably incentive for them to securitize them as well. If kids stop paying these, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually a stock trader before I got into the sleazy business of politics, but that was 20 years ago, so I don't remember. But that begs the question, like Moody's and S&P. Like, how do they rate these securitized loans? Do they rate them according to the degree? Like art history is a minus C, and a doctorate is.
They're all AAA, right? Because that's exactly what they did.
They're backed by the government.
That's exactly what they did with the mortgage-backed securities in the aughts. They were all AAA. Because they knew the government would step in, and the credit rating companies, they were all in on it because George Bush had said we need to make sure that people can buy houses because the government literally had it backwards. They said if you get a house, that will make you a responsible person, as opposed to have responsible people need houses. It was buy a house that'll make people pay their bills, that'll make people be responsible.
The craziest.
There's a degree you can get from Harvard called folklore and mythology. Can we just break this down in business sense? Okay. You go to a bank because you want to open a business, and they say, what will your business do? And you say, we're going to provide welding services to local construction companies and to, B2C and B2B. And they'll say, what's your projected revenue? Well, there's X amount of people that require the services of a welder. And they'll say, okay, so there's another way to look at it. You go to a student loan service provider, whatever, servicers, and you say, I want to get a loan so I can learn to be a welder. Why is that? Well, there's X amount of openings for welders. They generate X amount of revenue. You give me this money, I will learn to be a welder, and then I will pay you back. Makes sense. Now take a look at folklore and mythology. You're going to a bank and saying, I'm going to open a business. What does your business do? We learn about folklore and mythology. Who wants that? Literally nobody. So how are you going to pay me back? No idea. We're going to give you $100,000 for this deal. And they shake on it.
I know what a folklore and mythology degree will get you. It qualifies you to be a professor.
Dungeon master?
No, a professor of folklore and mythology.
Indeed it does. Maybe a journalist.
Yeah.
Or maybe you can be a communist.
Yeah.
I tell you, in South Carolina, which is a red state, one of the reasons that the Freedom Caucus Network exists is while the Democrats are trying to forgive student loans, in South Carolina, we're subsidizing on the front end. So they're getting student loans, that the Democrats are promising to forgive, but we're spending it's either $52 million or $57 million in this year's budget to subsidize all these same degrees on the state level. Like, no matter what it is, whether it's mythology or welding, The mythology ones actually probably get more subsidization.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. This is in a red state.
The education secretary said, Tim, that hundreds of billions have already been transferred to taxpayers.
Right. So I'm
People
assuming
got off. So those lucky folks got off where the rest of the other folks are going to have to pay it back.
I think Ian
And taxpayers,
said that, right?
Yeah, he
Said he woke up one day and he looked, his account was empty.
a son of a gun.
He didn't know that much, but it was, like 10 grand or something, I think.
Yeah.
I can't remember what he said. But gone. I don't know. I mean, the Supreme Court said you can't do that. So just because it's going to be interesting. What if Trump just says, "Nah, bring it back"?
Reverse it?
Yeah, why not? Your debt never went away.
Yeah.
They said that the debt can't be simply erased. So what happens if he just says, "We have the ledger, we'll just click yes," and then it's back? You can't zero it out. Or as quickly as they zero it out, they just go to system restore in the computer. Everybody's debt comes right back.
They can do whatever they want for the most part.
It's pretty wild when you see people like David Hogg screaming like they don't care about the rule of law. And it's like, bro, Joe Biden ignored the court like every day and then tried decreeing a constitutional amendment. Literally on his way out, he's like, 20th Amendment is now confirmed. And it's like, yeah, Joe, you can't do that.
It's the same party of mostly peaceful protests. I mean, that's the you can say in your law and order party while the buildings are on fire behind you.
We do love our very peaceful protests. But we do have another story, which is welcome to the nightmare scenario, my friends. We've got this tweet from Andrew Falchuk on X, and he points out the third most viewed video on all of YouTube this week is an AI-generated short of a pug that saves a baby from a plane crash, and then they try surviving on an island. I will play some of this for you now.
Just let the baby out the window.
There you go. We'll make it bigger. There we go. The baby had a parachute, by the way, and the plane explodes.
If you got parachutes, that's the right move.
This is actually
Good dog.
The pug then saves the baby.
It sounds like Titanic music.
Yep. This is creepy. And the dog is now securing a coconut to make a bottle for the baby. Oh, he's making fish in the coconut. Look at that.
Got an opposable thumb.
SOS. The baby's gotten bigger, and his hair color changed.
Blackhawk.
Yeah, right? Why do they have guns? The baby's been saved. So this video I find to be creepy, but not nearly as creepy as it gets. That's the number 3 video on all of YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Final Galaxy. This is another one of these AI slop. This is Elsagate. If you don't know what Elsagate is, welcome to the nightmare. About 8 years ago, there were a series of videos on YouTube that were going massively viral. It was Spider-Man, Joker, and Elsa running around with no speaking, and they were engaging in gags. These gags became increasingly more and more deranged. At first, it was just the Joker kidnapping Elsa and Spider-Man saving the day. But these videos are getting hundreds of millions of views. Eventually, they started turning into creepy things like Elsa was pregnant, and there would be a woman wearing a pregnant belly, and the Joker would have a syringe, and he'd be trying to stick her with it, a big plastic fake one, getting weirder and weirder. Eventually, you ended up with the Finger Family songs, which is very much what we are seeing now with this story. Take a look at this, the top 2 videos. 168 million views, and it's a child in a Spider-Man costume running from flying hot dogs. The next one is Spider-Man surrounded by hot dogs. There's Spider-Man fighting a sumo wrestler. There's Spider-Man with a gun pointed at the Joker. Here's a creepy one of Spicy Pepper Spider-Man eating a bunch of spicy peppers, kicking a child, Spider-Man with a child. This is AI generic garbage garbled nonsense. Now, you might look at this and say like, okay, well, in this one, it's Spider-Man fighting a sumo wrestler. What's bad with that? It is babies watching these videos. It is likely babies and children. And the reason why they have so many views, what we saw with Elsagate, this is exactly the same thing. They use keywords like Joker, Spider-Man. They've got Supergirl, apparently. Haircut and styling. It is literally just Iron Man. They are targeting keywords that get a lot of traffic on YouTube so that the video will autoplay for your baby. When you put your tablet in front of the baby and press play and walk away, this is what your baby starts seeing. These deranged and unhinged videos. It is going to fry their brains and socially stunt them and make them mentally unwell in the future. It is incoherent nonsense videos, and they're getting hundreds of millions of views. That video with the pug, that is a nightmare video. To be fair, a pug rescuing a baby isn't nearly as bad as the Joker forcing a hot dog in Spider-Man's mouth. But they're still strange, incoherent, asocial videos that are going to fry children's brains. And it's back, baby. There was a channel. Let me see if I can find this story. This is nuts. AI Trump YouTube channel that got some coverage. Yeah, here we go. We'll pull this one up. It's not just the garbled nonsense. It's this. Look at this. AI slop farms are churning out fake, heartwarming videos about Trump figures. And look at this. It's Carolyn Levitt. And she's on a plane. Like, what is this? They apparently deleted the channel. But there were videos. One was described as, they used that AI voice that sounds like this, if you've ever heard it. And a little girl approached Donald Trump and asked him, Mr. President, will you save the starving people? And the president said, and then it shows like Trump and he's looking at the child. Super creepy AI nightmare scenario. Welcome to hell.
Is this Final Galaxy TV? Because it says this channel is not made for kids. I'm trying to look it up.
Final Galaxy?
Yeah, Dash TV. And it's more. It says it's not made for children. So I don't know if it's marked off.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure they do that.
Just to lie to us?
Or just so that they could, because they do that because they know they'll get banned for this.
Okay.
And I mean, look at the description. All videos are created by Final Galaxy. All videos contain materials protected by fair use guidelines. Yeah, they're going to...
Age is 13 and up.
Indeed.
So a 13-year-old can see that. I've got a 12-year-old girl, and she will look at this stuff and ask me if it's real.
A 7-year-old still gets this.
Yeah.
They're putting 13 and up only because they know it's bannable because YouTube already nuked all this stuff during the first Elsagate.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Disney's pretty infamous for having pretty litigious attorneys.
Yep.
Where's the DCMA attorney?
I don't see how this is fair use. I mean, there's a certain degree where you can argue transformative or satirical or something, or commentary. Maybe one or two of these might fall into the realm of like we're satirizing it, but they're literally just using the IP to generate hundreds of millions of views. Mm-hmm. It is, and this is just one channel. I think I've actually got this. Here, take a look at this. This is viewstats.com. And GTA 5, Where is My Green Bed? In 21 hours, it has 19,614,546 views. Enjoy the video. That's it.
Good God.
And this channel's got 3.2 million subscribers. What is this channel even?
Hello.
Look at these shorts. Look at this. The latest one has 19 million views from yesterday. Where is my shower towel Squid Game? 53 million views.
Gross.
Hey. Oh, thank you.
That's all? And it gets 53 million?
Oh,
Look at the title of the video. GTA 5, Where is My Pillow? Squid Game Girl Doll Part. The goal is just to exploit the algorithm to get views, and it's working. And it's good. Look at this.
No, it's Where's My Shower Towel Squid Game.
This one is GTA Where's My Pillow Squid Game next to it.
Gotcha.
Same one. GTA 5 Who Owns This Bed Squid Game. So this is really interesting.
And then YouTube cuts checks to these things because they get the views, right?
Yeah.
So
hundreds of millions like that?
Yeah.
well, I'll do some quick math for 53 million views on a short. It's probably going to be $500, $600
For that one
for that
single.
one single. Yeah, and you'd think they'd get way more with 53 million. That's actually it's shorts. They run one commercial.
Okay.
What's his most popular? See how he opens every video with GTA 5? Mm-hmm. That's manipulating the algorithm. That's a bannable offense. And so what he's doing is every video is titled GTA 5 title followed by Squid Game. Squid Game Girl Doll Part. That's the algorithmic manipulation. Isn't that crazy? I mean, bravo to them for figuring out how to manipulate the algorithm like that, but it's messed up because this is going to fry the kids' brains.
But the return on investment, if you think about it, is creating that 1 5-second clip. I don't know, $10 of your time to put that together. because it's the marginal cost.
Not
of
even.
doing that. Not even. Yeah.
He's probably got a program that he just types in AI.
Yeah.
He just opens up an AI video generator and says, make this video, enter.
$1.
Upload.
50 cents.
Yep.
And then you get 500 in return.
Mm-hmm. There's the top video might be, they're all shorts, by the way. Here's the top video for the past day.
Hello.
Oh, jeez. It's
all
just
brain rot.
Brain
rot.
And YouTube is intentionally, look at this. All of the top YouTube videos are shorts. They're all, except for this one, Raid 2 Money, 9 million in 12 hours from T-Series. But T-Series is massive. They're like Indian, I think, right?
Yeah.
YouTube is just, I'll be honest. I'll tell you what I think. I think that the push towards TikTok-style shorts on all these platforms is intending to end shows like this. You can't have a Donald Trump presidency if you eliminate the ability for the people to speak. And so they are siphoning revenue away from platforms like this and then moving everything over to dead formats like shorts.
It's Orwellian. I mean, this is...
So instead of listening to this show, people are just doom scrolling through.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they're watching that.
Yep.
Just weird giggle noises. The worst thing is it's children that are doing it.
Well, I can attest to that. I taught high school for 3 years, and I would catch students watching this kind of stuff, and I just could not comprehend the interest. Like, why? And they had no idea. It's just,
it's that dopamine squirt that just, oh, that's interesting. I want to see another one. Oh, dopamine squirt.
It's interesting how we kids used to do drugs and smoke.
Yeah.
They used to drink, and it was like, whatever. Children had cigarettes way a long time ago. And then at some point we were like, this is actually melting their brains and destroying their bodies. Let's stop this. We haven't yet figured out we need those restrictions. I think YouTube should be, I think it's never going to happen, to be honest. Our Congress is too dysfunctional. So perhaps the fall of Rome occurs when your lawmakers can't defend themselves from whatever this is. Reasonably, I think Congress would say to YouTube, banned. AI slop and slop content in general are banned, even if it's human-made. A 4-second video of people giggling and eating carrots, like, nope, you can't do it.
So we need a whole new division, whole new department, or a transfer department. I know I'm not trying to expand, Phil. I'm just throwing this out there.
I guess it's
someone already.
I guess you can't because it's a 1A violation.
Yeah, and that's it's certainly unconstitutional. But I don't think that's something government can handle. That's a societal problem. I mean, that's
the government handled drugs.
Have they?
Yeah, they have. We used to put cocaine in our Coca-Cola. Now cocaine use, so this is a really good argument that Seamus Coughlin brings up when it comes to abortion. The liberals always say that if you ban abortion, then it's a coat hanger in the alley. And Seamus responded with, okay, so you're saying 99% of abortions will be gone? Deal.
Yeah.
Like your argument is overwhelmingly abortions are stopped. So certainly there's problems with the war on drugs and how they've handled it in the past 20 years. But societally, through laws and regulation, we got rid of cocaine and Coca-Cola.
And that was mostly on the state level rather than the federal.
Indeed. Indeed.
That's where it started.
But I do believe you're largely correct. That's a societal problem. And I don't know how you solve for that. Because, look, man, how many parents are aware that this is happening to their children and are going to be able to adapt quickly enough to stop it from frying their kids' brains?
Have you, not to digress, but have you guys discussed the fourth turning on this show before?
Ad nauseum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we're there. And the fourth turning is all sorts of things, right? Political instability, debasement of currency, civil unrest, and the breakdown of the family. And
indeed.
And the only way to get through it is to go through the crisis. And then when we come out of it, we're going to be a lot better. And I don't know that I truly believe the fourth turning, but it seems like we're heading there.
I don't see why this would be the one time it breaks.
Right.
So they say, this is, for those that are not familiar, Strauss-Howe generational theory. They call it 4 seasons. And the easiest way to explain it is what happened 80 years ago.
World War II.
80 years before that.
Civil War.
80 years before that.
Revolution.
Exactly. And they say that actually there's more. Mm-hmm. We tend to just not talk about what happened 80 years before.
War of the Roses and
right. They explain it's basically that a generation goes through war and crisis. They're hardened. They struggle. They survive. They have healthy children. Those children understand the lessons from their grandparents. They have kids. The grandkids grow up in a flourishing society from the hard work of their grandparents, but their parents largely didn't understand. And then the next generation is totally detached, angry, dejected, has no idea what's going on, and chaotic, and then it breaks again. And that's where we are. And I think it's true.
I do too.
Yeah.
That's where the black pill comes from.
It is. Yeah, I take a black pill every day.
But no, this is what I don't like about the black pill. Just because we can predict that a storm is going to happen doesn't mean it's like, I guess it's done and we lay down. Imagine if you're outside and they're like, oh, a tornado's coming. It's like, well, I guess I die. It's like, what are you talking about? Get in the cellar. Do something to prepare for this. And then when the storm passes, you get to work. What I genuinely don't understand about the mentality of so many millennials, and it's a sliding scale. Millennials have it bad. The work makes them feel pain. They hate work. That I cannot understand. And I feel like you'll see this tendency between liberals and conservatives, where conservatives, I believe, more likely enjoy work and liberals more likely hate work. And it's why you get communists. They don't want to do anything. Yep. Conservatives, maybe it's because of, maybe there's a correlation between living in urban and rural environments and why conservatives tend to be in more rural areas. Maybe you had to chop your own wood and tend to your own animals. Be responsible for yourself. You lived in a city and you had a delivery service do it for you. Or you had welfare checks or something. I don't know.
I mean, look, it's not a good situation. We were just talking about the interest rate and the bind that the essentially the Federal Reserve and the government are in, trying to fix the problem, but we've allowed it to get so out of control that I'm not sure that there is a way out that isn't defaulting on the debt or something that destroys the dollar, trying to hyperinflate the dollar or something.
Okay, let's entertain defaulting on the dollar, because I don't think people realize how apocalyptic that means. It means the global financial system crashes worse than we've ever seen. The first question I have for you guys is, if that does happen, your access to what is largely viewed as routine consumer goods is gone. Mm-hmm. What is, and I love this question, the hardest to source, cheap, and most important consumer item you would want to have if the global economic chain collapsed?
I mean, look, it's going to be things like water or...
Disagree.
What do you think?
Well, I got a well. I can pump water.
Okay, so, well, I have a well. I have a well as well.
Indeed. So that's not hard to source. It's actually quite easy.
It depends. Okay, so not for you.
If you're in
personally.
a city,
yes.
What I mean is,
who are you talking about then?
I mean us. Like literally, these gentlemen in front of me. I have my answer, and I think a lot of people who have seen the show know what the answer that I think is. But something that you can go to the store right now and buy without a thought, that once the economic chain collapses, you ain't getting, and it's extremely useful.
Oh yeah, I know what this is. Never mind.
I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking of your question differently, which is if
what do you want to buy 5 boxes of right now? If you knew
protein,
that is a good one. I don't think it's
protein and water.
So emergency food is a very, very good idea if you thought the collapse was coming, but food's not, I would say for you guys, particularly hard to source. I think on average, conservatives skew towards understanding how to grow their own food. I'm not saying they're all farmers and they're all going to master it. Much more likely where they live, because they tend to be in rural areas, and so they're going to have more sparsely populated. I don't believe food is the hardest thing to source.
Ammo
is probably one of the best answers. Yeah. And that's probably up there at number one. My second choice, or rivaling first, is antiseptics.
Yeah.
Stub your toe on a rock, get sepsis and die. Or splash a little alcohol. And it's not mouthwash. It might just be whiskey.
Yeah, my cousins are pretty good at banking that. I'm not from South Carolina themselves.
I'm not grow potatoes.
Yeah, potatoes, corn.
Yeah. I'm not sure if Neosporin has an expiration date. I mean, it's essentially, some kind of antiseptic that's suspended in petroleum jelly. So, that's a good way to take care of minor injuries, the kind of stuff that Tim's talking about. Ammo, obviously, is really good. You should, especially if you're a regular viewer of this show, you should have firearms, ammo, food, access to water, if not actually having water on hand, stuff to put water in that isn't plastic bottles, etc., like that.
But I
there's a lot-
don't think they're going to default. I think they're going to inflate their way out.
Yeah.
They're literally just going to start printing money, and they're going to use that to buy bonds and put them in the Federal Reserve.
Don't you?
And interest rates are then
So then the value of all your money goes away.
correct.
So that
But the
means,
stock market will rally.
I mean, it's still going to be some kind of. It's still going to send massive repercussions throughout the whole global financial system, and that still likely will turn into some kind of conflict.
The only thing that saved us so far is the fact that the only
rest
thing
of the world is
is worse. Correct. I mean, the fiat dollar is bad, but every other currency is worse.
Indeed. But I want to white pill you guys. We got this story that I think it was actually Libby who pulled it up early in the morning. Catholic Herald says Catholics set to exceed Anglicans for first time since Reformation due to younger churchgoers. I got to be honest. I'm not super versed on this dispute or whatever from Catholics and Anglicans, but we do have another story, and it's from the Wall Street Journal. As Catholic Church enters a new era, conservative U.S. members push it right. The conservative wing is reviving old practices and growing more assertive in the battle for the future of the church and the nation. These stories are part of a growing trend of younger people becoming Christian, and I think we had another story here, which is in line with this, and it is new research. Belief in Jesus rises, fueled by younger adults. Something is happening. And we can see this. This graph is actually very interesting. Percent of U.S. adults who say, quote, I've made a personal commitment to follow Jesus that is still important in my life today. And in 2008, 77% said yes. And it has gone down quite a bit. However, since around the pandemic, it's gone from 54 to 66%. And I'm even seeing in my own personal life, friends of mine are people that I know, I should say, have converted. There's a prominent professional skateboarder who is largely viewed as kind of a degenerate, recently got baptized. I mean, these guys are viewed as street, scummy, drunk, guys. Russell Brand, viewed as kind of a degenerate guy for a long time, and he's turning his life around. I will stress with the context of this conversation that I'm calling this a white pill, despite the fact that I will fully admit I am not a Christian, but I think everyone can agree when your choice is degenerate, urban, dopamine chaser and routine churchgo with a moral tradition, there's one that's preferable.
100%.
Substantially more preferable.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Substantial.
Clean, functioning, traditional people who are living in a healthy life versus people who are living as if they're going to die tomorrow and then just doing drugs and wasting away. This is a huge white pill. We're not even post fourth turning. Fourth turning hasn't even happened, and young people are starting to adhere to a moral tradition.
Yeah, this is a pattern that's been going on, just maybe not as dramatic, but for years as people have kids. And I'd be curious to know if your acquaintances, if your friends, if they have young kids, if that's like they've gotten to that point in their life where when they have children, they look back in their own past and think, man, I want some of the same stuff I had. Does that
well, what I'll tell you is, in my life, the people that are having kids were already Christian, and the people who are not having kids have either abandoned it or not. But what I will say is, my wife and I actually had this conversation. We're both lapsed Catholics. We are not in, like, I'm not going to lie to people and pretend to be a Christian because this is like, some people probably would do it. However, we both agreed our daughter's life would be infinitely better if she grew up with a church, because we know that we did too, even though we left. And the concern we have now is it's kind of a challenge. I don't want to go to a church and pretend to have faith in something I don't. I kind of feel it's disrespectful, despite the fact that most Christians have said, no, come anyway. We want you there. But we also know that this upbringing helped me and my wife be good people. It helped us grow and good, learn good morals. If we don't give our daughter that, then she won't have what we had. And so we want her to understand the things we understand and experience what we understand to a limited effect. And so that is the challenge, I suppose. So we have talked about how do we do that? And of course, the response from 100% of Christians is, please come.
Yeah.
And we were like, well, I don't know. I just don't feel we could do that.
Sarah and I have been to church 4 or 5 times in the past 2 or 3 months. We've gone to Mary a couple times. Sarah's got a friend that we've gone to church with them. Both of us are lapsed Catholics. Have my
Everybody's coming back.
I mean, well, look, the fact of the matter is, like, it really is a preferable way to raise your family.
Mm-hmm. I went the opposite way. I'm a converted Catholic.
There you go.
I was Episcopalian until I married my wife.
They went woke, though, didn't they?
Oh yeah, the Episcopalian, they've got a female pope. Like,
Oh God.
yeah.
Heavens.
Yeah.
And the point of that is just to get people in they think that they need to be in vogue just to get people in the pews, and really what they need to do is actually be a holy church that and allow, if they believe, allow God to work his magic, you know?
Well, I've got two daughters, 9 and 12, and one of the single best decisions my wife and I made is sending our kids to a classical Christian school rather than the public schools. I mean, it's not just that they get a Christian education, but that they're not exposed to the toxic, woke public schools.
Yeah.
And with school choice expanding across the country, I think what you're white pilling today, it's only going to continue to go.
I've told the story quite a bit, but I think y'all will like it. It's Seamus Coughlin of Freedom Tunes. Shout out to Freedom Tunes. It's amazing. You should subscribe on YouTube. Seamus said, hey, meet up with me after we get out of we do a Latin Mass. And I said, okay. And me and my brother showed up as he was getting out. And here I see people wearing their Sunday's best, having conversations, laughing. The children were playing. The children were also dressed in their Sunday's best. And I just thought to myself, isn't this infinitely preferable to what we see in the cities with kids doing drugs and running around and joining gangs and yes. I'll take some of that.
One of the masses that I went to recently was a Latin Mass, and I had never been to a Latin Mass before. And I tell you what, whatever you think of a Catholic service, the Latin Mass is you get transported 500 years into the past. It's maybe 1,000 years ago. It's totally medieval, and it's kind of wow, this is kind of metal.
That's fun. It's kind of metal. It's all in Latin too, right?
Yeah, all in Latin. Yeah.
Wow. How do you know what they're saying?
There's in I forget what it's called, the program.
Okay.
It's actually translated. You have one page is Latin, one page.
Do you sing?
Gotcha.
No, I don't, because I don't know Latin.
No,
and I don't know the song.
I'm like, do they sing?
Oh, yeah, they do. They do, yes.
Because I mean, if Phil Labonte was singing metal Latin,
but it's actually really cool. It's a trip.
Well, the question is, can you get the benefits without the foundations? So, if you, not as individuals, but as a society, if we recognize whether it's the old school Catholic Church or a Baptist church, I'm Reformed Baptist, not too dissimilar in morals though. Can you have one without the other? And I think that's, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, that was kind of tried of, we're just going to kind of play along with the functions. And that's maybe how we wound up here.
I don't think that you can.
Yeah.
I don't think that, especially in our society today, I don't think you can get to the road to Damascus experience unless you surround yourself with Christians, unless you go to church, unless you're walking that path. And then if it's going to happen, if God's going to move in your life, then he's going to do it then.
I was watching that.
That's what makes the most sense to me.
I was watching Charlie Kirk on the Bill Maher Club Random. And Bill Maher made a comment about, he asked about "He is risen," the phrase referring to Easter. And Charlie Kirk says, well, it's an undying, it's immortal, it's all time, it's not a past thing, it's a current, it's always. And it's for everybody. If it was just he was risen, it's a thing that happened a long time ago. Mm-hmm. Bill Maher laughs and says it's amazing, I'm paraphrasing, but something about how someone could be intellectual but believe something so stupid. And Charlie said, it's not stupid. And Bill, that's not what I mean. What I mean is how they can make themselves come to believe these things. And I thought to myself, while I don't identify as Christian, I do believe in God. And I was thinking, I feel like a lot of Christians either don't understand or don't know how to. Maybe I shouldn't speak for other people, but the way I would explain it to Bill Maher is, in this moment, I said, Bill, I'm thinking to myself, I would ask him, can you see the color yellow over there? And he'd look and he'd say, yes, I can see yellow. Prove to me it's yellow. He'll be like, what do you mean? I can see it. It's there. I know it. I'm looking at it. I'm experiencing it. Okay, that's how I feel about God. I don't know why you don't, but for a lot of people, I think that's the way it is. You experience God similarly to how I can look and I can see, the color blue on a wall and say, I'm seeing blue. And there's an old philosophical question of, what if blue to you is red to somebody else? Well, I don't know, but I know that I am currently experiencing something, and I don't know why you can't. Bill then says, you're being stupid. I don't think he was trying to be intentionally derogatory, but he says, how could you believe something so dumb? And I'm like, could it just be that there's a perception you don't have?
Yeah, that reminds me of the C.S. Lewis quote, prolific author, genius. But he said something along the lines of, believing in God or Christianity is not looking at the sun. It's looking at everything because of the sun. Like he can see the world because the sun's there, but he's not staring at the sun.
I wonder if, if that's what it is, though. Is it that people who, here's what I think. I think there's probably a lot of people who have faith in God and even faith, particularly in Jesus and specific religion and denominations, who don't actually feel it, but have faith. They believe it. Mm-hmm. But I do believe there's probably a lot of people who literally experience this. I've met them. They've told me these stories. Mm-hmm. And so to them, it's like, as plain as day as I see the sky, I feel the presence of God. And then I think that there are people like Bill Maher who lack the perception for something like this and also don't believe it. So they say, you all must be crazy because however I see the world is the way you must see the world, instead of realizing he just has a different perception from somebody else.
There's a strong hint of arrogance and belittling in that comment too. Like,
yeah,
you want to question somebody else's faith, like you better come with receipts that you know the answer.
Yeah, one of the things that I said earlier, I'm in a heavy metal band, and that's my gig outside of this. And I spent past 25 years touring with all kinds of people, and a significant portion of them are atheists, right? Committed atheists, I don't believe. And one of the things that they continually say is things like, "Oh, the spaghetti monster in the sky," and they belittle it, and it's like, I've always found that so arrogant and such a ridiculous take on religion, because something that I've said that's totally true, but it's something that I talk about a lot. In every human society, forever, for all the times that there's been humans, and likely pre-humans, or likely the Neanderthal and other things that were before humans, they likely had religion. So in every society that humans have ever had, no matter how far they are separated in time or distance, there was religion. So to think, in the past 15 seconds, we figured out that we don't need that. And now all of the things that came with religion, and they only focus on bad things, like, times that there was excesses or times where you could cast religion as a negative. All those things don't matter anymore because now I'm so enlightened and I don't need any of that stuff. And it's just such a pompous and ridiculous, thoughtless position to hold, and it drives me nuts hearing people say things like, "Oh, the spaghetti monster in the sky." It's
the spaghetti monster thing I find funny because it's like, imagine you yelled that there is a giant grizzly bear behind you and they went, "What?" And you were like, "It is a gigantic beast. It's covered in hair. It's got big teeth." And like, "Oh, you believe in the furry bear. Oh, I don't believe you." And you're like, "I am warning you." But let's jump to this. This was big news today. I want to jump to the story. We'll get this one in from the Post Millennial. RFK Jr. to eliminate artificial dyes in food and medicines by 2026. So this is funny because West Virginia tried pushing it to 2028. They passed a ban in the state saying by 2028, no more artificial dyes. It's a 3-year lead time. RFK just steps and goes, "No, actually just 1 year. Get it done now, everyone." And I am 100% for it. So RFK Jr. and FDA Commissioner Marty McCary announced Tuesday that petroleum-based synthetic dyes will be eliminated from medications and the nation's food supply by the end of 2026, about a year and a half. This includes those found in candy, soft drinks, desserts, breakfast cereals, and jams. The agency said it would set a standard and deadline for the industry to transition to natural alternatives and take action to remove remaining colors from the market. The FDA intends to revoke authorization for dyes that are not in production within the coming weeks.
Nice.
Epic. Sorry, Michael Malice. We were talking to Michael about it, and he's like, "Why should they do this? I want my petroleum dyes." I'm like, "Well, our exertion of power has exceeded yours. So now we get to ban artificial food dyes."
I noticed on the list of dyes that they're banning is yellow dye number 5, which if you're a diehard fan, you remember the cop said that was one of the ingredients in the Twinkies that he was eating.
Great movie. Absolutely great movie.
But I'm totally on board with this.
Same.
I've got a lot of libertarian tendencies, but this is one that's long overdue. We've got so much garbage in our food supply. And related, the federal government is in charge of the nutritional dietary guidelines, and those guidelines dictate what our kids eat in schools. Mm-hmm. And that is a political process. That is not a scientific process where they decide what's good or bad. Potatoes are okay because the Idaho senator said they're okay. And, and they go through all the lists. Like, it's a corrupt process. And years and years and years and years of that corruption led to all this garbage in our food.
Yep. That's the libertarian challenge is they say people can buy what they want to buy. And I'm like, look, man, if a guy walks up to someone and says, buy this smoothie, but it's turpentine and they die, what does our society do? Well, libertarians would largely argue like, well, you killed him. And it's like, okay, what if he puts only a little bit of turpentine in it? Now they're not going to, they're only going to slowly die. No, you're still, okay, where's the line? Mm-hmm. Right? These petroleum-based chemicals are reportedly connected to a whole bunch of chronic illnesses. And that's causing us serious problems. In fact, RFK Jr. said it's putting us in the poorhouse. It's costing us around $1.6 billion. I think it's a billion per year, or was it more?
Yeah, something like that.
In medical costs. Yeah, he says ADHD, obesity, diabetes, insulin resistance, cancer, genomic disruption, GI issues, and allergic reactions. Petroleum-based dyes are used to color food and medical products, we know, and I'm for it. Get them out. Get them out. Let's eat real food for once.
When we talked to RFK at the Libertarian National Convention, the question that I had for him was about mandatory spending and about the unfunded liabilities. And his answer was, well, we're going to fix the food. And at the time I was like, I don't know if that's going to fix the problem. There's a whole lot of stuff. But at the same time, there is value to the idea that if our major food producers are making things that actually make us sick. And there's no question that there's a massive increase in, early onset diabetes. There's a massive increase in obesity. Now, it's not just the food that we eat, but because people have a much more sedentary lifestyle now. But if there are things in the food that we eat that are making us sick, I think that it's okay if the government says, hey, get those things out. And if it helps lower the cost of health care for people when they become older, then hey, that's a good thing.
And this is my conspiracy theorist hat on, but I also think it's realist, is that think of the turtles all the way down here, which is the FDA is contemplating whether, and I'm talking years ago, is contemplating whether yellow dye number 5 makes sense. Mm-hmm. Well, we cannot approve yellow dye number 5 without scientific evidence. The food industry gets a bunch of scientists together, writes a paper, says yellow dye number 5 is just fine, and then it gets approved. And then do they get legal immunity protection because the FDA? So then they're not even legally liable for it if you get sick. There's no funding for scientific studies to question whether it's bad. So the libertarian argument is almost on our side here, which is that the government's tentacles are so deep into this that getting them out of it is the correct move here.
You know what? I realized something because I was scrolling through Instagram, as I often do, and there was a clip from The Founder. And it was where Michael Keaton playing Ray Kroc, he orders food at the drive-thru, and then they bring it to him, and he's like, I ordered barbecue beef. Then it shows him walking up to the very first McDonald's, and he says, I'll take a hamburger. And they hand it to him, and he goes, what's this? And they're like, your food. And he says, no, I just ordered. And they're like, and it's here. And he was shocked. What I realized is fast food doesn't exist anymore. What we have now are chemically processed garbage factories. The first McDonald's, they were grilling real burgers. Mm-hmm. And when you walked up, it was actually a real restaurant quality burger, but they just made it very quickly because they were doing an assembly line. Now McDonald's has turned into processed sludge that doesn't decay. All of them are. I don't even know what Taco Bell is. It's delicious, by the way.
It is.
And so the idea that there are diners and there's fast food, when you watching that movie, there were diners. He would like a drive-in or a diner, and it took 20 minutes. And then there was the fast food revolution, which he discovers at McDonald's, where he was like, "This is the best burger I've ever had." I got to tell you, McDonald's burgers and fries are disgusting. And, I know a lot of people might I like them. Yeah, but you'd like a smash burger from,
oh, yeah.
Like if you go to a higher end casual dining place where they got a $15 smash burger with real ingredients, I know you like that more. That's how it kind of used to be. So we just don't have fast food anymore. I guess Chipotle maybe.
We were talking about this on the way here.
Well, just think about McDonald's. Is they used to fry their French fries in tallow, but then the federal government comes in with Title I subsidies for corn, so which makes the seed oils and makes it ridiculously cheap. So if you're McDonald's, why would you not swap out tallow for vegetable oil and save money on the bottom line? So it's just the government inserting their tentacles again to make us sick.
With our own money.
With our own money.
But we were talking about on the way here, you asked me what's the best barbecue restaurant in Charleston. Charleston, South Carolina is where I'm at, and famous for good food. And I mentioned Lewis Barbecue, and it's so good that they fry their French fries in the drippings of the brisket. Nice. They collect that. And
that's real food.
That's real food. Exactly. Yeah.
That's extremely good. Look, I'm personally still a fan of McDonald's fries. I think that's the only thing that, like, on their after the breakfast they stop serving breakfast. I think the only thing worth going to McDonald's for anymore is the fries. And I won't go make a special trip to McDonald's for the fries. But yeah, the idea that they should have the government tell them what they must, what actual food products they must use. I'm not so sure that that's actually the proper course of action.
We need to figure out a way to have a counter that tells you how long you're going to live, and when you go run a mile, it doesn't drop down. And when you eat a French fry from McDonald's, does it drop a day?
Look,
wait.
Go to the gym.
What does Taco Bell do?
I got to tell you,
gym.
I bought this watch. I bought this watch, and when I go to sleep, it tracks my health metrics. And I also have this bed, the Sleep 8 bed. It's amazing, by the way. They didn't sponsor us, but I would love it if they did. It's a bed where you put like water in this thing, and it can cool and heat your bed. Yeah. But it also tracks your sleep. Have a single beer. 1.
Yeah.
Go to sleep. Wake up in the morning and check your health stats, and it says you're dying. And it's crazy. No joke. I go out to eat with my wife, and I'm like, I'll get a single glass of red wine because they say red wine's not bad. I go to bed. I wake up, and it's like recovery is 20%, sleep score is 37, your breath rate was bad, and it says you may be getting sick, something is wrong, or you're drinking alcohol. And I'm like, wow. I was just like, none.
I've got the Oura Ring, and the very first app I open up in the morning is to check my sleep score. And the one thing that I care about most is how much time I spend in deep sleep. Because when you're in deep sleep, that's when your body scrapes all the plaque in your brain and gets rid of it so you don't get Alzheimer's and all dementia and diabetes and stuff like that. And you're exactly right. You have one drink and your deep sleep just crashes.
Just recovery and everything is just gone.
Yeah.
It's like you're very sick. And you drink poison. So since then, I've been like, I ain't touching any of that stuff.
The best sleep I ever had was last summer, and I remember it clearly. I didn't spend any time on my phone. At night, I ate a normal meal. I didn't stay inside. I went outside by a fire pit, looked at the fire, talked with friends, went to bed. I was dead for 10 hours. It was the best sleep I ever had. And it was all just normal human things that we did 10,000 years ago.
Man.
I'd be curious though to see what those the stats are between Europe, like Italy, where they drink wine with every meal, versus here, like their Alzheimer rates and dementia rates. If it's the alcohol or if it's all the other.
Well, they don't have the crap in their food.
Maybe it's the garbage,
but they don't have the crap in the food like we do.
Yeah, we have about 10,000 chemicals, chemical additives, and they only about have 400 to 410 over in the EU. So we got a lot more than them. A lot more slop in our stuff.
All right, my friends, we're going to go to your chats. So get your chats in now. Smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you know. We're going to have that uncensored show coming up at 10 p.m. You don't want to miss it. But before we do, we got a great sponsor. We got American Financing. Shout out. Go to americanfinancing.net/Tim today. With everything that's happening in the economy, especially the stuff we were talking about earlier, it feels like we're walking on shaky ground. Prices are stuck at a really high level, and it seems like nothing is affordable anymore. It's no wonder many are relying on credit cards to cover the gaps. Credit card debt is skyrocketing, and it's leaving a lot of people stressed out. If you're a homeowner, you don't have to face this uncertainty alone. My friends at American Financing can help you take control. They can help you access the equity in your home to help you pay down that high-interest credit card debt, giving you peace of mind and real savings. On average, people just like you are saving $800 a month. Plus, they may close your loan in as little as 10 days. Don't let the chaos of the economy get the best of you. Call American Financing now. It costs you nothing to get started, and you may delay 2 mortgage payments, giving you a cushion in this uncertain time. 866-890-7811. That's 866-890-7811, or visit americanfinancing.net/Tim. Shout out. Thanks for sponsoring the show, guys. And we'll grab your chats, and I'm sure there are many questions. Evan for us says, any way we could communicate with Trump and his team about what we can do about Trump cutting funding to Alzheimer's and dementia research, or is there more to it? Well, I think there's always more to it. I think the issue is largely that they're, and correct me if I'm wrong, just probably blanket cutting all these research grants, regardless of where they're going to. Everybody's going to want their project to get funded. But I got to tell you, as most of you probably know, when you're cutting budgets, you keep going over it. You're like, I can't cut that. I can't cut that. And then you're like, got to cut something because of maybe a little bit from everything. Or else what do you do?
It's like hoarding or not hoarding. Like if you buy, like I've moved recently. Do I want to throw this out? Do I want to throw that out? You like got to throw everything out.
Well, and I don't think that the process of funding research like that is as pristine as people think. It's more complicated than that. You've got, Anthony Fauci type folks who are in charge of that funding, and that funding goes to woke universities like Harvard, who spend 30% of that on actual research and the rest on administrative expenses. Yeah. And so it's not only wasteful, but it's also political on what gets funded and what doesn't. I mean, it's pure Soviet Politburo top-down central planning. Like the most worthy research doesn't necessarily get funded. So the whole thing's corrupt. I get rid of it tomorrow.
Indeed. 'Twas ever thus says, I was so proud of you today, Tim. You and Elad, Timcast ruled the day. I really do appreciate it. Elad got some pretty good questions in. He went for the normal questions, just straightforward. I think he got 2 for Carolyn Levitt, and he got 1 for Trump. Yeah, he asked Trump if, and this is interesting, because Trump's got to be careful with his words. Elad asked him if the Trump administration would allow Hamas to control the Gaza Strip post-war, or he's essentially said, will Hamas need to be removed for a ceasefire to actually happen? And Trump said something I think he said, we're not going to let Hamas do that, and we're looking in to see how it goes, which sort of insinuated he was saying Hamas will be removed from Gaza. So it's an interesting, so I think Allah did a good job. Whether you're for or against it, the fact of the matter is Trump made that statement. But I'm sure they'll say, no, he was saying we're going to wait and see. So he didn't give a definitive answer. Still, it's rad that we've got Elad in the White House, in the press pool asking questions. Boy, was the media really salty about that. Numerous times now. They keep complaining. You know what I said to these people? Elad has been nothing but professional. He's not gone in there and insulted and disparaged people. He's just asked questions, and they keep deriding him. I'm like, this guy didn't do anything. He's just asking questions.
Yeah,
these people are threatened by their cabal being stripped from their authority.
Yeah, I mean, look, like like what's her name last night, Tara was saying, it is true that a significant portion of the legacy media are actually there for access. They're there because they want to be around the people that make the calls, that make policy, because it's better than money. Because if you have the chief of staff's number and you can call the chief of staff and say, hey, can you help me get this guy on the phone? Or, hey, can you help get this, blah, blah, blah. It's better than money. The point of money is to be able to affect reality, right? Affect the world around you. Otherwise, the money has no value. If you're not using it to do things, it's just paper. So why have the money, which you have to worry about taxes, you have to worry about, questions of legality of illicit payments or whatever. Why not just have the chief of staff's phone number and you can call and say, hey, do you know anyone over at this location? Can you call them and get this done? If you can do that, it's better than money.
Mm-hmm.
So
indeed. Jacob Bali says, Jackson, the court's president, what is it? Do it, restore constitutional powers to the executive branch and the people. We need FDR-style republicanism The GOP must use state power while they have it full speed. Indeed. Pinochet says, Tim, I can't read that, but he basically said I was very disrespectful to the media, and we agree.
Justifiably so.
Yeah, he said something much worse. We'll read it in the uncensored portion of the show. 3-star perfect deer says still waiting on the Epstein list. So I sat down with, as I mentioned earlier, Secretary of DHS Kristi Noem, Sebastian Gorka, as well as Secretary Duffy, and we're probably going to roll out the interview with Kristi Noem tomorrow during the Hour Rumble live show. Gorka on Thursday, and then with Secretary Duffy on Monday. They all have with all due respect to the individuals we interviewed, the cabinet members, I don't want this to sound in any way disrespectful, but we sort of weighed them in terms of newsworthiness. So I'm not trying to be disrespectful in any way. I think the conversation with Sean Duffy was the most fun, but it's kind of evergreen. We discussed planes, DEI, drones, UAPs, and things like this. He did make some interesting statements, which I think may get clipped, about seeing videos of UAPs going in and out of water and things like this, which I thought were fascinating. And but with Secretary Noem, we discussed the more pressing stuff, the border. Gorka, however, this guy knows how to talk. He's a radio guy. He's a podcaster himself. And so we had a much longer conversation. In terms of the Epstein list, Cash and Dan, and we will put this out. He basically said, give us time. It's like, it's been 3 months. We just got here. There's so much paperwork. There's so much you got to do to get these things to happen. But he very much said, rest assured, we are doing what you're hoping we're going to do. And I told him, I'm not going to be impatient. I have faith in Cash and Dan. I could not imagine a scenario where Dan Bongino walks away from the biggest live show in the country, tens of millions of dollars, for a low 6-figure public service job, and then just doesn't get the job done. That's not going to happen. So I'm very optimistic. I can understand the frustrations as well, though. Me, I'm just Cash, Dan, and Pam. I give them all of my benefit of the doubt, all of it.
We were kind of spoiled by the first month or two of the presidency when all the Doge stuff was going on.
Going so hard.
But every day was just so awesome.
Yeah, it was.
And rightfully so, maybe needed to scale back the brazenness of it. But I hope they do just put the pedal to the metal and start doing that kind of stuff again.
The Real Hydro says narcissistic personality disorder is a mental health condition characterized by a persistent pattern of grandiosity and a need for admiration. I mean, this explains the corporate press. Exactly. Yeah. All of those people sitting in that room, many of them are there specifically for the purpose of getting their viral clip, just to yell at the press secretary and then say, see, I yelled at the president. And in doing so, they will lie and misinform the public.
Is this why the press and establishment politicians get along so well? Because they have the same
goals.
Narcissistic, yeah.
There was that clip, I don't know if you guys saw it, from Jordan Peterson on Rogan, where he said psychopaths are taking over the right. And it's like, yeah, I'm just going to say it. We all know that Jordan Peterson disparaged Candace Owens. So it's kind of obvious he's referring to at least her. But I tweeted this, who is he talking about? Because taking over the right, if he's got beef with Candace Owens, you should just probably say that you're beefing with one other personality for her views or whatever your criticism is. But she's just one person. She's got a big show. She's one person. Like, who are these psychopaths on the right that are taking over? I'm genuinely curious.
I wonder if he was also referring to Andrew Tate because of his daughter's association with him.
So maybe, but I don't view Tate as taking over the right.
Yeah, I mean,
Tate occupies his own specific space.
Maybe not, but like I said, I think that's probably who he was referring to.
I got to be honest. I think the effectiveness of what he was saying was completely wiped away by him not giving specifics of behaviors and individuals. I understand why he doesn't want to come on Joe's show and specifically say, Candace Owens is a Pharisee and blah, blah, blah. Like, he tweeted that. But I kind of feel like if you're trying to say, look at a specific behavior I'm criticizing, when you don't name the person, it just kind of sounds like you're sub-tweeting them, you're just trying to insult them without actually saying their name. I don't understand what he's trying to say, to be honest. He mentioned James Lindsay and the woke right idea, which is completely nonsensical.
Correct.
So I don't know what he's talking about other than there are people on the right I personally don't like. And I'm like, okay, I mean, me too, I guess.
Say that.
Right. So it seems like he's applying this to a grandiosity, like, oh, it's because psychopaths are taking over because they exist. And I'm like, I mean, if your point is that psychopaths exist in all facets and the right has some too, I don't think anyone's disagreeing with that. But I don't know who or what behaviors you're talking about.
I can't think of anyone that has blown up recently or gotten super big or in the last couple months that has taken over the right. That's not already been there.
And nobody. I mean, Candace isn't taking over the right. Yeah. She's had a big show forever. She's doing very well, right? Her you know, she's been growing, but she's had skyrocketing growth forever. I mean, she sat down with celebrities and she was interviewing Ye back in the day before Ye went on this arc. You know what I mean? I think she's been on a path of success for the past 5 years.
Arc is an interesting way to describe it.
You know what I think? I think here's what I think happened with Ye. He was talking seriously about the 13th Amendment. And he said, we've got to, so I'm paraphrasing, but something like, we got to repeal the 13th Amendment. His point in the greater context was they never banned slavery. They codified it in the Constitution, which actually states in the 13th, it doesn't say slavery is banned. It says slavery is allowed if you're convicted of a crime, and any crime, meaning somebody who jaywalks can then be forced into slavery. He was saying, we need to get rid of that. The media then lied and flipped the narrative and said he wanted slavery back. I think he saw that, and he probably went, they're all liars. And so when he dresses up in a black Klan outfit, the things he's done and things he said, I think he's trying to just basically say, you are all liars. No matter what I do, you're going to make it up. So I'm going to
lean in.
I'm going to put on a show and I'm going to mess with the system. I think that's largely what it is. I can understand why people are upset with him, though, for sure.
He's definitely messing with the system.
Indeed. What do we got here? The Dude Abides says, be watchful of Illinois' governor. It's heavily speculated J.B. Pritzker is going to run for POTUS in 2028. He's got billions to spend on an election. He's got a scandal for exceeding the donation amount of 2 Illinois Supreme Court judges. Interesting.
First of all, J.D. Pritzker's not running anywhere.
Touche.
We have an Illinois Freedom Caucus that routinely spars with him, and what's interesting about him is that he is not trying to moderate to the center like Gavin Newsom is, or Josh Shapiro, or even Wes Moore in Maryland. So he may have a lot of money, but like you said, Phil, like they spent a lot of money the last election and it didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we'll see.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the economy.
Yeah.
Graver Strategy says they're called SLABs, Student Loan Asset-Backed Securities. Yikes.
Rough.
D. Scott says, Tim, if or when you meet with President Trump again, throw everyone off and wear a toupee with a suit. Maybe.
That actually would be hilarious.
It
would be.
If you pull off the beanie, full head of hair.
Just long flowing locks.
Yeah, it'd be
That's how it
great.
always
It'd be
was.
great.
Shane H. Wilder says, kids will eat it up, this AI slop, because it's a cartoon, all while destroying their brains. It's an easy way to make mind-numb automatons at wholesale prices. Mm-hmm. Creepy. I'm in Disguise says, you got to remember the people who are making these videos are almost certainly from poor countries. 500 to 600 USD is probably how much they would make in a year with a regular job. Indeed.
Yep.
One of the videos we looked at that was not AI slop, it was regular slop, was an Indian family doing these 4 or 5 second slop videos. And I'm so offended by this stuff because they're attacking Americans with this and they don't care because they make money.
Yeah.
And so it's a video. There was one video where like a guy takes candy from a little girl and then she gets up her chair and then he sits down and starts eating the candy and then it's just stupid sound effects and then it's over. And it's got, I don't know, about millions of views or whatever. So for these people, it's like, $500 is the equivalent of probably 5,000 for you or more. And they're like, I'm rich. And all they have to do is trick American kids into melting and frying their brains. But I largely blame YouTube. YouTube's too busy censoring channels like mine and other personalities to deal with the actual manipulation from foreign governments and countries that are trying to fry the brains of our children. And unless there's some enforcement action against them, they don't care. Elsagate went on for, I think, years. It got so bad that it turned into AI-generated videos. I shouldn't say AI, but it was old school, of children eating feces out of toilets.
Oh, geez.
Yep.
One of the things that people don't people may not think about when it comes to, getting the government to step in with something like YouTube or with Spotify. Specifically, that's the context that I was thinking of, or I had thought of prior. You can't get these companies to comply with the federal government when they can say, well, then we just won't we won't be available in your country because there's only 330 million Americans. There's 1 billion Indians and there's 1 billion Chinese. So if we cater to India and China, we'll more than make up for anything that we can get from the United States. So we don't need to comply with these rules that you make if they conflict with the rules that China wants us to have or that India wants us to have. The market is just vastly bigger, and it's really tough to get any kind of government sanction to stick to countries or to companies when they can do that kind of stuff.
KO777 says, the millions of views on these insane videos just proves dead internet theory. That's why YouTube hates it. It proves their views are bots. I don't think they're bots. What we saw in Elsagate is parents would give a tablet to a baby and press play on a video and then leave. And it would start with a normal nursery rhyme video. Then it would start cycling through autoplay and eventually turn into psychotic, deranged content of, there were videos of children, like I mentioned, eating feces. There was amputations. There were injections. Just really horrifying, brutal stuff. And then because it started going viral, human beings in poorer countries started making videos of injecting children and stuff like this.
Gross.
There was one video with like 10 million views, and it was a guy giving a saline injection to his like 10-year-old daughter while she screamed and cried. It's insane. But they were promoting it, and babies can't change the channel. Mm-hmm. All the comments were gibberish. So it was this weird conspiracy where people were trying to figure out why all these gibberish comments, because the babies were just smacking the screen. It was random. That's creepy, man, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's grab some more. All right. Andrew S.A. says, Phil, you effing nailed it, brother. I pray you all have your road to Damascus moment. Truly, Christ is risen.
Cheers, man.
Interesting. Yeah. Forced Name just says, nobody knows God exists. People have faith. Faith is the hope. It is this way on purpose. If God gave us proof, we wouldn't need faith. Bible said your faith will be tested, not your knowledge. I understand what you're saying, but that's why I said I believe there are some people that don't have that perception. Someone chatted that I was arrogant for saying that. All I can say is that in my head, I have a perception, much like I see things to be true, that God is true. I don't know what other people have, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with anybody. I'm saying me, it's just kind of like, yes, there is a God. Try to explain to somebody, I guess, I don't know. Some people just don't have it. Yeah. All right, Kate says, Tim, my student loans were transferred to another company. They were zeroed out, then reappeared on my credit. High probability Phil's comment is true that they repackaged these loans into securities. Interesting.
Scary stuff, man. Scary stuff.
Yeah.
Who owns those loans is what I'm interested in.
I mean, BlackRock.
Yeah.
BlackRock, whatever. I forget the
Vanguard.
Yeah,
Those guys.
The Truth A says California is trying to ban Glocks with AB 1127 because of the illegal use of Glock switches. This is a direct violation of SCOTUS ruling. When are the feds going to finally arrest these scumbags?
Never.
I mean,
there's only so many people in the DOJ. So
there's only so many U-Hauls that are going to keep going out of California into the other states.
Yeah.
Keep it going.
Jimmy says, actually, they're talking about bringing back the gold standard. You peg the dollar to gold and then reset gold price to 100,000 per troy ounce. The U.S. is 8,000 tons. Do the math.
Yeah, I brought that up to, it passed the House and the Senate a few years ago, 2012 in South Carolina, for gold and silver to be legal tender and take the taxes off. And I brought this up last year in the budget, and the response I got from House leadership was this guy puts a tinfoil hat on his head and comes up to the well and just like mocks the whole idea that gold and silver, like this is on the floor of the House with a tinfoil hat on, because now he's the chairman of the Rules Committee. The idea that gold could be money like how crazy we are.
He's a Republican, by
He's
the
a
way.
Republican.
Unreal.
Yeah, like we're crazy nutcases that gold's $3,400 an ounce. I think is what it hit yesterday.
Yeah.
35.
Yeah, 3,500.
It hit 35 and then it actually
It's at 33.91.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yesterday it hit 35 and then that was kind of the ceiling and now it's 33.80 or whatever. Yeah.
Back to your question of what do you buy antiseptics, the more comprehensive answer is buy hard assets.
Yeah.
Buy gold, buy silver, buy
I disagree.
Bitcoin, buy real estate, buy land.
Not in a total collapse. In a depression and an economic crisis, you want gold, silver, Bitcoin, and copper even. In a total collapse, those things are just going to weigh you down. They won't do anything. So,
Land won't, but
gold and silver won't either.
yeah.
If we have total collapse, and I had a big old pile of beef, and you came to me and tried to give me gold for it, I'd look to Raymond. Raymond's got a bottle of water. I said, I'll take the water.
Yeah.
Total collapse. That chart showing the increase of Christianity. That's where that kicks in.
Oh, yeah.
Sincerely, I mean we stop relying on government. We start relying on communities more.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. If there was a total collapse, the first thing people are going to do, they're going to secure a bat cave.
Yeah.
So they can get their saltpeter, or what is it? Potassium nitrate or something?
Yeah.
You want the bat crap so you can make gunpowder. Mm-hmm. So if you got the bat cave, then you need sulfur, I guess. Charcoal.
Mm-hmm. I mean, bullets are cheap and easy now.
I'm probably wrong on what's in it. I don't know. I don't think it's potassium nitrate. I'm probably wrong about that. Whatever. I've only seen the episode of Dr. Stone one time, so I forgot. All right. Pile of Kyle says Christianity, whether you agree or not, is a great moral structure and foundation, as are now non-existent youth programs. As are now non-existent youth programs like the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, 4-H, etc. I'm a proud Eagle Scout, but they lost their way. Yep.
They sure did.
Brian Rich asks me to describe the God that I believe in. I think that's particularly difficult to do in negative 30 seconds. So maybe we can talk a bit about it in the uncensored members-only portion of the show. Smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know, and head over to rumble.com/Timcast IRL for the uncensored portion of the show. You got to join Rumble Premium. Use promo code TIM10 for $10 off your annual membership. And if you want to call in, you got to join the Discord at timcast.com. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Gentlemen, you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Your listeners can find me on Twitter at Andy Roth. That's ANDYROTH. And the organization I run, the State Freedom Caucus Network, you can find us at statefreedomcaucus.org.
Yeah, I'm on X or Twitter at JScottPace. And you can follow the South Carolina Freedom Caucus at southcarolinafreedom.com or find me at jordanpace.com.
Right on.
Hey, guys, it's Raymond find me on X, Raymond G. Stanley Jr. on X. I wanted to shout out, one of our very first shout-outs here on the show was for someone making a comic from our Discord members. As his comic has just come out, if you want to promote him. Its name is Salty Draws.
Hey, look at that.
It just came out. It was the very first promotion here on the show for our Discord members, so get it. Just came out, brand new. If you like comics, rock and roll, named Salty Draws on X. Phil.
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. I'm Phil That Remains official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. You can check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, and Deezer. New record's called Anti-Fragile. It dropped on January 31st. Go check that out. And don't forget, The Left Lane is for Crime.
One last shout out. The Truth A says Tim never had an In-N-Out burger. The best fast food burgers out there, and they are switching to beef tallow for their fries. I'll give you that one.
You never had any
Give me that one.
yet?
I have, absolutely.
Okay.
So good.
I'm saying they're good.
Oh, gotcha.
So
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on. All right, we'll see you guys over at rumble.com/TimcastIRL in about 30 seconds. Thanks for hanging out.